This
Thank you.
conference will now be recorded.
This is Gary Zaleski. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, Gary.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. It appears that my computer crashed, and I'm trying to log on to another device. I'll see how we do here in just a minute.
Okay.
Sorry for any delay.
See, Charles, you're not the only one.
I know that shut everything down, didn't it?
I'm using a tablet, and I only see a total of 6 people at this point, so I'm not sure if that's all that have joined the meeting.
There's 21 people in the, hi Gary, this is Paul Roberts. There's 21 people in the meeting, including yourself. And there are currently 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9 people visible on camera. Richard's the best looking one.
Tom Monahan came and left.
He'll be back.
It's active, and just say yours says.
I see you, Gary.
Is-
Try saying something. Can't hear you.
There's Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hmm.
Not hearing you, Gary.
Do you see a volume, a microphone at the bottom of the screen by any chance, Gary?
The icon looks like it's active, but it's, don't hear anything.
Yeah, and I think he's still on there, however he was connected previously. I see Gary and Gary Zaleski. Not sure whether that's a problem or not, but
There he is, way at the bottom.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah, we
unmute your iPad, then you can talk through it while we can see it through your computer.
Can you hear us, Gary?
No.
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Nothing. Tom, you know what that means. You're gonna be running the meeting for a little while until he tries to figure that out.
Okay.
I apologize. Still trying to get,
There you go. We got you.
We can hear you now.
we can hear you now.
okay. Problem is when I plug in my headphones, something happened during the crash, and when I go to plug in my headset, it does not work.
Okay.
Okay. So, welcome to a delayed planning and zoning meeting for the city of Lago Vista, and we'll be beginning at 7:08, and would like to welcome all of those joining us. I'd like to introduce those that are present tonight. Let's see. Yes, Julie Davis is with us. Charles Solomon, Richard Brown, Larry Hagler, Tom Monahan, and he's our vice chair, and I'm Gary Zaleski, chair. And I believe that Don Jandro will not be joining us this evening. I believe that's correct.
Yes, sir. He warned us that it was unlikely that he would be able to join us.
All right. Our Director of Development, Roy Jambor, Aaron Silvera, our city attorney, and probably one of our more illustrious guests, David Williams, the liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission from the City Council. As we begin, I wanted to go ahead and allow for any citizen comments of any non-agenda related items. And before we do that, any comments, or as we discuss other areas of tonight's agenda, I'd like to try to keep those comments concise, stay within that 3 to 5 minute time frame if we could, please. So if there's any comments for non-agenda items, this would be the time.
I have one, Mr. Zaleski.
Yes, that's Linda Aird.
Right.
All right.
Is that all right if I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead with your non-agenda item.
Okay.
Comment.
The Firefly Cove website states, "Your future looks bright in a new home by Sunrise Homes, a privately owned Texas-based builder." Unable to find online information about a Texas builder doing business as Sunrise Homes, I stopped into the Firefly sales office. I asked a gentleman about Sunrise. A woman approached me and said she would assist me. She informed me that Sunrise was a national builder based in California and doing business as Sunrise Company. So I would just like to note the discrepancies between what I was told in person, what I found online, and what I found on the Firefly Cove website. And then ask today, what is the name of the managing partner of Sunrise Company who is responsible for the Firefly Cove properties and development in Lago Vista? And that is the end of my comment.
All right, thank you. Any other
Is there an answer?
non-agenda items?
Does anyone know who will go on record as telling me who is the managing partner of Sunrise Company?
Well, in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, the commission's prohibited from acting or discussing other than factual responses to the specific questions, any item not on the agenda. So I certainly don't know. Aaron, any advice on?
Mr. Chairman, if we have factual information that we can provide, you can respond to that. However, I would caution in this particular context, because it doesn't have a specific relationship to anything that this commission can take action on. Whether or not somebody is a registered agent of a business has nothing to do with an application that would be before you. Anyone can own a business. Anyone can own property and submit an application to you for consideration. It's the property owner that's important. And we were able to determine that the applications before you this afternoon or this evening, who owns the actual property, whether they're registered to do business and what their corporate structure is beyond the scope of what you could consider. So from a factual standpoint, I was able to verify that Firefly Cove LLC is registered to do business in the state of Texas, and that's what I can offer you this evening.
Well, Aaron,
Thank you very much.
To something else that may have been submitted by someone else. My question just merely pertains to who, for myself, who is, because the information online had the wrong name of the builder and said they were Texas-based, and then I was told that they're California-based. I'm just wondering who is the manager of the Lago Vista Firefly Cove development in general? Who would I go to for questions on who is the managing partner of that development that's doing business with the city? And that's apart from any agenda item tonight. It has nothing to do with that particular agenda item.
Understood. Tom, were you signaling there?
No, I wasn't. I can't answer the question. I have no information.
And neither can I. I don't know if Roy wanted to respond, but all right. Ms. Arid, it appears that no one really knows.
No one knows. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the time.
It's probably not part of the Planning and Zoning Commission's preview to know that. All right. Any other comments for non-agenda related items? All right. If not, we will move along into item number 1. That's 201701 FIPLA, consideration of a final plat approval in accordance with section 2.1, section 2.18 of the chapter 10, section 2 of the canyons at the hollows at Lake Travis, consisting of lots 6 through 9 of block H and lots 9 through 12 of block 1 of the hollows. 2, a replat of lots 10 through 20 of block H and lots 1 through 8 of block 1 of the hollows. 11-B replat, Travis County, Texas. And Roy, if you would give us the staff report.
Yes, sir. This is the final plat application of the final section of the replat of an old existing plat within the hollows that they're kind of rebranding as the canyons. You approved a preliminary plat of both of these, section 1 and 2 of the hollows previously, and you had the final plat of section 1. As you may recall, the existing plat was much larger lots that kind of included this ravine as privately owned property. And one of the major changes is to take that property out, turn it into common property, and to generate a few additional lots. Certainly the geometry has been challenging. But that was pretty much dictated by the way that it was platted the first time. We worked very hard both times to eliminate the odd configurations and geometry as much as possible. But the bottom line is there are an unusual number of double frontage lots and odd geometries, but we dealt with them as best we can, and that was the challenge, and the engineers did as good a job as we think can be done.
Thank you, Roy.
Yes, sir. About the only other thing I should mention is, in accordance with the ordinance, they're not through with all the public improvements, but they are bonded and secured as required.
Thank you, Roy. Would any of the commissioners like to question anything from Roy? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Roy, I just had a question about the fact that you were talking about double fronted lots having been a part of that preliminary plat. And I was just wondering what our ordinance says about when you build a house on a double fronted lot. Is there a requirement about which way your house would face?
No, sir, there's not. The good news in this sort of development, as opposed to the problems that we have in Old Lago, you have a developer that can exercise that control and hopefully will ensure that houses It can create some really unsafe conditions that way. But this developer has been conscious of that. And in fact, they've replatted some of these things to do shared driveways, even in the old sections, to try and clean up. Like I said, some of these problems were created long time ago when there were different people involved, and we're struggling as best we can to improve it as we go along. But there's no doubt it's a challenge.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Any other questions, comments to the staff from the commission? I guess not. All right then, if that's the case, then if we could, we'll go to the applicant presentation.
You're muted, Mr. Long.
Need to turn the microphone on.
Mr. Long, you're muted.
There we go. You can hear me now? Thanks. My name is Robert Long. I'm the project manager for the Hollows on Lake Travis, the developer of the remainder of the Hollows. As Mr. Jambor laid out, this is just a continuation of the building program we have currently underway in the Canyon Section 1 here in Lago Vista. Been very successful with our 3 home builders. They need these additional 52 lots and continue their home building. We noted that some notes, we need to update a few of the plat notes. We're in agreement with that and have already directed the surveyor to make those few changes as recommended in the staff report, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any of the commissioners have questions for Mr. Long?
No.
Doesn't appear that way. If that's the case, then we will go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:22 and see if there's anyone that would like to make comments during this part of the meeting, this open public hearing. No one has any questions, comments? All right, if that's the case, then we will go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:23.
Excuse me. Sir?
I'm sorry, who is that?
My name is Sean Michelle Evans, and I've been in communication with Roy and Councilmember Williams. And this is my first time on a council call, so I don't know what the etiquette is. So are you closing public just for this one agenda, or is it for the rest of the whole meeting?
No, this is for the first item on the agenda, and we opened the public meeting at 7:22. There were no comments about item number 1 from the public, and so we closed it at 7:23. This is item number 1 for the
Okay, got it.
The business over at the Canyons at the Hollows on Lake Travis.
Okay, clear. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss my turn, so I'm clear. Wait till agenda 7. Got it. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion on this item? All right. Would anyone like to make a motion to bring this forward for a decision? Tom?
Yeah, for agenda item 20-170-FI-PLA, I make a motion that Planning and Zoning Commission approve the final plat.
I second.
Seconded by Mr. Solomon. Any further discussion on this particular item? No further discussion. I will go ahead and call the roll. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
And Mr. Solomon, you second. Is that
Aye.
also an aye?
Yes.
And Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mr. Hagler?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Monahan, that was your motion. I assume that's an aye?
Aye.
All right. And the chair votes in the affirmative as well. And of course, Mr. Jandro is not available. So the motion carries. All
Thank you
right,
very
then.
much. Good evening.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Long. Moving on to item number 2. And once again, I'd like to apologize for everyone for this issues. About 20 minutes before we were ready to start the meeting, all of a sudden my computer went into some mysterious mode, and it's still struggling at this point, but kind of goes with me anyway. At my age, I struggle quite a bit anyway, so. Okay, so item number 2, 21-1817 PR-PLA, consideration of a preliminary plat approval in accordance with section 2.16 of chapter 10 of phase 4A of Tessera on Lake Travis, being approximately 25.55 acres situated in the Texas-Mexico Railroad Company Survey number 201, abstract number 2291, and JSP Peacock Survey number 202, abstract number 2469, Travis County, Texas. And Roy, if you would also give us our staff report.
Yes, sir. You may recall that the last 2 plats that were brought in front of you by this development were extremely expedited because, quite frankly, they're a victim of their own success. And nothing has changed. It's actually gotten a little bit worse. Now we're starting with a plat approval that they've already done the construction plans for us, and they're in the process of finalizing the design for the infrastructure to support it. But yet builders are still lined up to get these lots. So once again, this is a new location, if you will, up near the entry. The lots are roughly the same size as what we've been doing so far. And they've done a really excellent job of dealing with the severe topography and the strange geometry that they're that is kind of imposed upon them.
Thank you, Roy. Any of the commissioners have questions or comments to the staff? No? Mr. Brown? No? All right. Well, then we would go ahead and move forward with the applicant presentation.
Good evening. My name's Jack Garner, and I'm with Langen Adams Engineering. We're the engineer of record for Lakeside at Tessera on Lake Travis. Tonight before you, we've got a 70 lot phase, as Mr. Jambor characterized. It's right at our front entrance on the east side. We're welcoming a brand new builder to Lakeside. Very proud to do that. They're prominent here in the state. And we're excited to get started. As Roy said, the demand has gone through the roof, and we're doing our best to try to keep up, to bring y'all nice new dwellings and new residents, good tax base for all. So we'd certainly appreciate a favorable vote tonight from you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer any.
Yeah, Jack, I believe this was planned about 3.5 years from now at best.
Yes, sir. It's a curse and a blessing all in the same breath. But yes, we're trying to accommodate.
Okay, thank you. Any of the commissioners have any comments or questions to Mr. Garner?
I got one.
Go ahead, Tom.
This is more out of just my own curiosity. I just, with building supplies costs going kind of skyrocketing this year with the shortage and stuff, you're not seeing any slowdown or anything. I mean, obviously prices have to be going up because of it. So just curious if there's any slowdown or anything because of the change in costs.
Well, unfortunately, we're seeing in the marketplace the time to bring a house fully to market. It has increased quite a bit, close to 40%. We're seeing labor shortages, we're seeing material shortages. So yes, sir, all those things are kind of affecting us being able to put units on the ground, whether it's from the ground up or from the structure itself. It's a double-edged sword. We got a lot of people coming and we can't quite get it done fast enough. It is affecting it, but we've got good suppliers, we've got good contractors, and we're doing the best we can with the market conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Garner? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Garner, are these units all going to be freestanding, or are they attached, or?
Yes, sir. They're single-family detached units, same side yards and everything that you see throughout Lakeside. So yes, they are freestanding units.
Oh, okay. I thought I had read somewhere that it was kind of a townhome style.
No, what you're referring to, Mr. Brown, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I did mention that in the staff report that some attached units might be in front of you in the future, but they're not here yet.
Thank you both.
All right. Any other questions or comments for the representative from Tessera? Mr. Garner? All right. That's the case. And we will open the public hearing at 7:33 and see if there are anyone. I'm going to kind of gaze at the screen here for a while and watch to see if anybody comes up, turns on a microphone. Doesn't appear to be. All right.
I have a
Then
question.
it's 7:34 and we'll close the public hearing.
I have a question.
Yes, and who's speaking, please?
This is Christy Perez, and I live in Lakeside at Tessera. And I don't know, this may have been discussed in a previous meeting, but I just saw the signs going up along our area. And I'm very disturbed at what's going on about bulldozing down all the trees for these homes. I was wondering what was the protocol for all these other homes that have been built. You look at all the other areas in the hollows and all these others, they left existing trees when we first moved here. The trees were left existing. And so this developer, I don't know, that it just came in, and the next thing we know, everything's gone. It's just bare. And I find it very disturbing, especially when we were told when we moved here is a green belt back here.
Thank you. Mr. Garner, would you like to respond?
Sure. We do our best with the landform that we have to keep as many trees as we can. When we have areas that are flatter and don't require quite as much maybe grading or earthwork to be done, then we're able to save as many trees as we can. I mean, there's an inherent value to saving trees, and we understand that. And you do have many, many green belts within Lakeside, and there will be many moving forward. The area here at Phase 4A, which is call it the easternmost portion that extends from 1431 down to where Sarah Parkway crosses the main ravine. It's a very challenging landform. It's got a ridge that runs down the middle, and so the only way that we could be able to develop it is to do considerable earthwork and folding that over, so that we can create a building pad on the top. We're very mindful, the developer is very mindful of keeping all the trees that we can. It's been since day one. But in certain areas, there's really nothing we can do. We have to take out what we've got to do our earthwork and then come back in, and the builders will then reinstall trees in the areas that are developed. As you can see, this plat or any plat, there's lots of open space that's cordoned off and that's left for your trail system and preserving the natural corridors, drainage ways, all of that. So we don't just come in and try to slap everything down. It's actually a measured response to what the landform is we're dealing with.
Well, what was the zoning on that before? Wasn't this changed? Because how is it all these other homes and everything else have been built and they seem to leave existing? I don't know. I mean, I know if you're coming in and putting 70 houses on one little tiny area, that's just easier, it seems like to me.
Yes, ma'am. And I don't know what size product you're on, what width product you're on, but depending on the width product you're on, and then also the slope of the area where your house is, if you have existing trees, then we were probably able to save them. We're the same design engineer that's done every lot out there. So we in some way designed your lot. When we can do that, our intention is to save the trees. They're valuable to everybody. Certain portions of this property are just so severely sloped that we can't do that. Area 4A and all the way down to the low side of future phase 4B and C will be very similar in nature to what you see in 4A.
And who is the builder that's coming in?
Mr. Garner, thank you very much for responding. And I would suggest that if there's more information needed, that it doesn't necessarily, I guess the comments apply to this phase 4A and what the Planning and Zoning Commission could do, but we certainly do appreciate your comments. Perhaps you could carry those forward with the developer. I don't know, is there anyone else that I had closed the public hearing, but I'll just make a note that we had reopened it. Was there anyone else that wanted to make a comment during the open public hearing? All right. That we will officially close the public hearing at 7:39. All right. Any discussion with the members of the commission? If not, then would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Brown?
I would like to ask Mr. Jambor a question with your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Well, sure.
Thank
Go
you.
right ahead.
Is the type of site prep described by Mr. Garner a type that would fall under our tree ordinance and require a survey and measured tree replacement?
It's not the exact same ordinance, but it's in the subdivision ordinance, and they do in the construction plans, you know, give us existing trees and, you know, the replacement and dealing with the, you know, the open areas and that sort of thing. Now, you know, but similar to our ordinance, you know, we typically don't look for them to replace the ash junipers.
Yeah, they can take as much of that out as they want.
Okay.
Well, and they do, but there's a cost. They have a mitigation plan. You know, they're in the wildlife or the habitat preserve area, but that they handle that through a different party. We don't have anything to do with that, actually.
Thank you, Mr. Jambor.
All right. Any further discussion then? Doesn't appear to be. Would someone like to make a motion? Thank you, Tom.
I have to unmute first here. I make a motion that Planning and Zoning Commission approve agenda item 21-1817-PR-PLA, the preliminary plat for the subdivision for phase 4A. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion at this point? No further discussion. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Solomon?
Aye.
And Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mr. Hagler, you seconded. Mr. Monahan, I assume it's a yay.
Yay.
And the chair votes in the affirmative, and the motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Garner. And I appreciate the lady bringing her comments forward. I'm sorry, it looks like she has left the meeting. All right, moving on to the third item. Third item on the agenda, 211819-SP-E, the consideration of a special exception application pursuant to section 11.60 of chapter 14 to allow an increase in the maximum height allowed by table A of chapter 14 from 15 feet to 30.01 feet for a single family residence at 2705 Patriot Drive, Highland Lake Estates, section 29, lot 29028. And Roy, if you would give us a staff presentation.
Yes, sir. In accordance with the staff report, the staff noted that many of the lots that might otherwise be impacted by residents built at this location actually had a different orientation towards the lake. The ones behind it were shifted about 45 degrees because of the cul-de-sac that they were on. As a result, it tended to minimize the number of views that we could find that were severely impacted. Instead, it seemed to us like the far more significant factor was the architectural context. The area immediately around this property is largely consisting of vacant lots, except for a couple of recent constructions that on both sides of this street, and then one that you can see from the block to the north, but only because the lot behind it is vacant. The issue, if you were to confine yourself to that immediate area, you might conclude that this is, severely out of context with those existing residences. But the more you expand it, the more eclectic it gets, so to speak. So, once again, it seemed like the critical thing to us was to determine exactly how you should define the context. And that seemed to be the big challenge to the board.
Thank you, Roy. Questions that the commissioners might have of the staff at this point? Roy, I have one in particular. I guess because of what could be defined as an excessive amount. I know that we have this come before us many times, and I don't recall one where it virtually doubled the height. I guess my question is, what would be a normal height of a two-story house? I mean, I remember us being in the 18-foot restricted areas, the 15-foot restricted areas, and, looking at things between 23 and 26 feet. But I don't recall anything that was quite, double in size, taking it to a 30-foot amount.
Well, you can certainly do a two-story house with less height, if that's your question.
I guess that was probably it.
Yes, sir. The pitch of the roof, the ceiling heights, all of that, impacts it. But, you can certainly do less, and you've seen much less.
Any of the other commissioners have any questions of the staff at this point? No? Oh, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Yes.
Roy, there are two graphic descriptions of this house that were provided to us, and they are significantly different. The first one, under building elevations, depicts two gables to the front, and then the back part is apparently hip roofs, and except for maybe that little birdhouse on the side. But the pitch of that roof in that presentation is clearly not 6 and 12, it's more nearly 4. And the hip either is lower than or equal to the height of that front gable. That is decidedly different from what is provided with the other two elevations that are provided. And I want to know which one should prevail. And I'm not talking about a limitation to the what the commission can approve. I'm just talking about when we receive a package and we see such divergent information. How do we know what to do with that?
Yes, sir. I mean, I would not disagree with you that the rendering seems to include the same house with a lesser roof pitch. Given that, that was simply something that was in the package that was in the application. The elevations, on the other hand, have a dimension on them. And that dimension is the one that's in the application form that makes the request. So in my opinion, clearly, the building elevations that include the dimensions are the ones that they're asking you to approve.
Even though even the roof design changed from hip to gable for that upper roof.
I'm trying to, yeah.
That rendering, that upper roof seems to be a hip roof and at a very low pitch and not taller than the front gable.
Yes, sir. I see that.
Changed to a gable roof with a very high pitch.
Yes, sir. Even with the, obviously the gable is going to be a little more imposing than the hip roof, that close to the edge of the property line. But once again, you're right. I mean, the rendering does not appear to be consistent with the other drawings.
One additional sort of administrative question. Since we got into this question on whatever it was, Buffalo Gap or whatever, we instituted a procedure whereby the builder certifies the form elevation or slab elevation to us before they commence construction or before they pour concrete or however our procedure requires.
Yes, sir. And we are in the process of changing Chapter 3 either to include new ordinance provisions that detail this quite a bit more extensively. Although one of the challenges or tasks that Erin has on her desk right now is to mark a long list of these changes and tell us which ones need to be in an ordinance and which ones can be referred to in the ordinance and instead be a published policy. But yeah, we're adding not only the existing form survey, requiring it to include a top of slab elevation. We're adding a framing inspection that requires you to certify the height of the framing before you install things like sheathing and insulation and those sort of things that might make it difficult for you to modify if you've mistakenly built too tall.
Thank you, but it's not yet an ordinance though, is that correct? It's merely a procedure that we refer to at this point, huh?
Yes, sir. But we are in the process of bringing all that in front of the Building and Standards Commission. They've seen this paperwork.
Thank you, sir.
Any other, the commissioners have questions or comments to the staff at this point? All right, then we will move along to the applicant presentation. And I believe that's Mr. Gazda.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Luke Gazda. I represent the ownership entity, Firefly Cove Homes, LLC. I don't have a long presentation. I think Mr. Jambor and the staff have put together a very thorough report. There's a couple things I do want to note and point out. One, it does seem like this is excessively high, 30 feet. I do want to point out that this house, as the staff pointed out, or this lot is in the 100-year floodplain. And according to FEMA, the flood zone is at 722 feet. And so in order to build that house out of the floodplain, we are raising it up, the finished floor elevation above 722 feet. And that's on our application where the finished floor elevation is at 723 feet. So of that 15-foot variance that we're requesting, 3 to 4 feet is attributable to the floodplain. Secondly, architectural character. I know it's a concern, and I think Mr. Jambour and staff put it nicely in determining how do you figure out what the scope is of the architectural character. We've driven down Patriot Drive many times. We've looked at the houses on the street, what houses are not on the street. There's largely vacant land everywhere around the lot. There's a variety of architectural styles, from adobe to traditional to Tuscan modern, Tuscan traditional, and then as the staff report mentioned, there's 2 contemporary elevations, one across the street and one 2 doors down. We've sold this house already to a buyer, and they're really excited to move into it. They were really drawn to our modern farmhouse elevation, which we think is fits nicely and brings diversity to the community. The modern farmhouse elevation that we offer is one of the higher elevations that we offer because of the steeper pitch roof. It's just a characteristic of a modern farmhouse. And there's also, when we were driving around Patriot, we also noted there's multiple homes in the area that are also 2 stories. 2911 Patriot Drive, 2905 Patriot Drive, 2200 Patriot Drive. And then if you drive down to Beacon Hill or Beacon Knob, which I know is zoned differently, it's in a PDD, but virtually every home on that street is 2 stories. And I think every house I've mentioned is within close proximity, at least within a block or 2 from subject. All that is to say, I think the staff report's great. We are here to answer any questions. This will be one of our first homes that we're building in Lago Vista, and along with our community, Firefly Cove. We're really excited to be here. We're really excited to bring homes and a different product and a new look to Lago Vista. We have multiple floor plans and multiple elevations, and there's going to be a lot of architectural diversity and different characteristics with our homes. So here for any questions and yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Mr. Gazda, I guess you had mentioned you have multiple elevations. Do you have any 2-story elevation that would not be at where you would have to request an additional 15 feet?
We may have one other elevation or 2 other elevations that would reduce it to maybe 14 feet. Like I said, this house was sold already, and the buyer was drawn towards our farmhouse elevation. One of our elevations is a contemporary elevation, and the roof lines would look pretty identical to the house across the street and would raise questions about your similarity ordinance. Most 2-story houses, to answer your question previously, are somewhere around 25 to 30 feet in height. So even if we were to build a single story on this lot, because of the floodplain, we'd be requesting a height variance.
Thank you. Tom?
I guess I disagree. The height measured on there is at the 720 from the 723 foot level. So, you know, the exception request isn't really related to the floodplain. You know, it does have to go up a couple feet. I understand that. My question is, with this existing design, is it possible to change the roof pitch to say lower it, say 4 to 5 feet?
We can certainly look into it. My colleague, Michael Price, is on the line. He is our purchaser and operations manager. He might be more familiar with what we can do. I know there's limitations specifically with mechanical equipment in the attic and HVAC equipment that would restrict us from lowering it. We can certainly lower the pitch, but I can't give you a measurement of how many feet that would reduce the ridge height without looking into it in further detail. Michael, if you could provide any information, or if you have a better sense of that, please chime in.
A couple of things on that, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet all of you, and you know, as Luke said, we're very much looking forward to building in Lago Vista. I serve as an alternate on P&Z in Georgetown, as well as on the building code. So I understand you guys, and I really appreciate you guys spending your evenings getting this done for the city. That being said, yes, we could probably lower that pitch somewhat, but it would take away, I think, overall, because this is a modern farmhouse, which by and large includes those higher pitches. And that is just an architectural thing. And I think if we were to lower it, it would look like any other, house out there, and I appreciate the lower pitches that are required. Tom, just wanted to if I may, Tom, one of the things you had said about, yeah, we could lower, if we weren't sitting right there at 723, we could come down if we weren't in that floodplain, and that would put us at about, 26 feet. So, it's, robbing from Peter to pay Paul on that. It is a high roof, as Tom, I got to meet you yesterday out there, and it was a pleasure. It is a high roof, but one of the things that we've been discussing is, are we blocking anyone else's views? No. As Luke said, if you go down the street on either side, there are 2-story houses that I'm pretty sure, yes, they may not be at 15 feet over, but they're still much higher than the 15 feet that is allowed there. Otherwise, honestly, if I didn't see those there, we wouldn't have even bothered asking.
Here.
Sorry, Gary,
Yes,
you're breaking up.
Charles.
Oh.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Did you know what the zoning was when you purchased the lot?
Yes, we did.
Did you tell the new buyer what the zoning was when he bought the lot?
The buyer hasn't bought the lot from us, but they're aware that we are going through a building height variance.
So you knew that this area was that the zoning for this area was 15 feet height.
That's correct.
What is the zoning of the houses that are 2-story?
From my recollection, I think it's R1A. And I don't know any R1As down here.
Mr. Chair, your zoning
yes,
map, your zoning map is in the packet, and everything within that's on that zoning map is the same as this property.
Right.
One second.
Yeah,
everything there is zoned the same, and yet, again, if we look around at the 2 stories that are there, partially it's because, on a couple of them, they have their garage levels and storage on the first that's, bringing them up out of the flood because they're a little further down. But, measured from even on that second floor, it seems to me like they are above, I would assume that they have height variances on them.
Roy,
And I don't know how those other houses were zoned.
Roy, I was just
I
going
have
to ask.
comments, but I would rather make them later.
Those neighboring houses exceed the 15 feet.
But they're not
did we approve
neighboring.
anything?
They're a considerable distance away. The ones that are neighboring are meet the 15-foot requirements.
Oh,
Are you referring
okay.
to the lakefront lots, Mr. Chair?
No, I was referring to the ones that are the neighboring houses, relatively new construction there.
Those are both almost exactly 15 feet tall, an inch or two less.
All right. Thank you, Roy. I just didn't want to confuse that. Do any of the other commission members need to speak or ask questions of the applicant? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I have just a remark to make that it's difficult to know whether or not a house was built to the height that's built because of the elevation of that lot. And without the survey information, as you know, your house is, as you said, 3 or 4 feet taller than it might have to be because of the fact that it's in the floodplain. Well, a lot of that property is in the floodplain, and when you just drive down the street and look at a house without having survey information to know how what floodplain problems that property was dealing with, it's very difficult to identify how or why the house was built to that height. Now getting on to my comment to the applicant, why is it you submitted a rendering with a very different roof than the one that's shown in the schematic, and I'd like to know why that roof line is not one that you mentioned. When you were asked what you might be able to do from the standpoint of altering that roof line, you mentioned, oh, well, maybe we could bring it down 8 foot. Well, it looks like in that rendering, the roof, the ridge would be 4 or 5 feet lower, not 1 foot lower. Also, I can't see that. I'm looking at your floor plan, and it looks like there are mechanical rooms in the floor plan. And so I didn't think that you actually had horizontal units in that attic. But even if you had a 4 and 12 pitch roof, it would seem to me that it would still allow plenty of room for mechanical equipment and duct and insulation and so forth. I'd also like to say that from the standpoint of what the commission is given to evaluate the appropriateness of an application, both with regard to views and architectural appropriateness, I think that the roof line that you suggested kind of indicates a sort of a tone deafness about that, because you seem to have missed the intent of the ordinance on both accords. You could have lessened the impact on views, and you could have selected an architectural style more like the rest of the community immediately adjacent. So I'm really wondering why you brought this application to us without considering all of that, when, as part of your packet, you actually showed us a house that could have dramatically lessened the impact on both of those accords. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to address those questions and comments. I think your first question, comment regarding to the rendering versus the elevation. I'm pretty certain that these are the same. One is just a 3D representation and one is a 2D representation, and there's some perspective issues that
I'm pretty sure they're not the same.
I'm
pretty sure.
I'm positive that these are the same. They're generated by the same program by our same architect, and it's the same floor plan. What looks dramatic in the front elevation looks less dramatic on the 3D rendering, and that the 3D rendering is accurate of how that house is going to look.
The 3D rendering actually has a hip roof on the back, not a gable, and the
3D rendering just shows the front elevation.
I beg your pardon?
The 3D rendering just shows the front elevation.
Yes, but you can also clearly see a hip has been utilized for the drawing for the main part of the roof behind the two front gables. And it's apparent, it's clearly apparent that the ridge of that hip is not higher than the ridge of that front gable, that higher front gable. And
the hip, the highest point.
You and I just are not looking at. Go ahead, please.
Sorry to interrupt. The highest point, that ridge, is 50 feet from this point of view. So it's a lot further back behind that gable. So the way the camera is being shown, it is closer to the street and it's lower. The perspective is looking up at the house, whereas this 2D rendering is kind of looking at the house from straight on. So that hip roof is hidden by the gable in the 3D rendering, and it's not in the 2D rendering. And I apologize that it looks like a discrepancy that was not the intent.
Well, I'd like to say that the 50-foot dimension that you just mentioned is from the street, and
which is the perspective of the 3D rendering from the street. Sorry, I'm looking at my screen and pointing to the rendering. You guys can't see what I'm looking at.
I do that all the time.
And then to address your other questions, you know, we may be able to raise or lower the pitch to a 412. That's something we can explore. It's not something that we were trying to ignore the ordinance or quite honestly, it's what the buyer wanted. They were drawn to this floor plan and they were drawn to this elevation. And we warned them that we would have to go get approval from planning and zoning. And they were on board with that. And they liked the modern farmhouse rendering and the elevation. And it wasn't our choice to choose this and submit it in the face of the ordinance. It was the market dictating what house wanted to be built here and what the buyer wants.
Mr. Gazda, I am amazed by your response that the rendering and the schematic drawing are the same building. They are not the same roof at all, except for the two front gables. They are not the same at all. And to say that it was done because of perspective from the street is disingenuous because it doesn't even have the same style roof construction. There's clearly a hip roof on the back half of the on the rendering, and a very tall straight gable on the back half of the diagram. I just, you cannot persuade me otherwise.
Would it help if I shared my screen so we are making sure that we're looking at the exact same thing? Because I'm not trying to pull a fast one here. I honestly think they're the same elevation.
You're not pulling a fast one, Mr. Gazda.
Would you like me to share my screen?
The hip roof he's talking about, Mr. Chair, is actually on the left side of the front elevation.
I guess listening to the dialogue, what we're dealing with is whether or not we're going to allow a 30-foot house in a 15-foot area. So I think we're getting a little off subject, whether it's a hip roof or what the pitch might be. You know, it's, for me personally, I think in this area that to go double the height is excessive. So I'm going to let, if we can, just move along and deal more with the height of the additional 15 feet than the architectural part of it.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the architectural part to me is also not an issue, but I was merely trying to respond to Mr. Monahan's question of, is it possible to do this house with a modified roof design that could lower it, that the commission might look at more favorably than what is before us now? That was my own intent.
Your point.
I'm sorry I got too far afield with the rest of that.
No, I thank you, Mr. Brown. Yes, that was what I was leading into with initially with, you know, how tall does a two-story house have to be? And you know, it might just have be this particular design is maybe just too excessive for this location. Tom?
Yeah, you know, my question stemmed from because we have in the past, you know, when we've thought the height issue may be excessive and stuff, we have, you know, our approvals have stipulated maybe a modified roof height. So I was, you know, in considering that a possibility here, I was trying to get a realistic appraisal of whether that can be done. And I don't know, it still seems reasonable to me. It could come down 4 or 5 feet and still put in, you know, any air conditioning equipment or whatever that mechanical issues are up there.
I think I can bring that roof line down, just laying out the roof plan on it. I can probably bring that down about 3 feet. It'd be gabled on both ends, Richard, not a hip.
I have no objection to all gabled roof. I was just trying to, in my mind, balance the two different drawings.
It's kind of a funky rendering on that one. Ultimately the architectural plan that we would be doing would be a gable. I can bring that down about 3 feet.
And I guess with that said, it's already been relayed to us that the owner, the person who's purchased this, you know, are they going to be willing to shave the 3 or 4 feet off the top of the house? I guess that's something that the builder needs to negotiate with the owner, but sounds a little difficult. I mean, if I had my heart set on that particular house and that design and that particular lot, and next thing I knew, I was going to lop 3 or 4 feet off the top of it, I don't know if I'd be a happy homeowner.
Yep, that's certainly the reality of pre-selling before we have approval, and something we would have to go back to our buyer on. We're prepared to do that.
Right now, I think we're beating a dead horse. We need to move on, please. We're talking about the circles around the same thing.
All right, is there any other comments from the commission to the applicant? Doesn't appear to be. All right, then we'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 8:20.
All right. My name is Artie Chocsaw. I live in Austin, Texas, in the Arboretum area. I have 3 lots next to this particular residence or this lot. There's an ordinance in Austin called the McMansion Law, Chapter 25-5 and Subchapter F, if anybody wants to go reference it. And it basically has to do with houses that are larger than their lot size, which he has a standard size lot. What he's asking to do is actually raise the roof line, as we've been talking about. My next door neighbor was the one that actually brought the McMansion into effect because his house was excessively large. And unfortunately, his house was built while the ordinance was being put in place, so it was continued to be built. It finished. It did have an impact on the neighborhood. It impacted sales of the houses around it, and then it is also an eyesore because it's so much bigger than everything else. And if you want, I can share pictures with you of the house next to me so that you could kind of realize what it would look like with a fully developed neighborhood.
Art, what was the address of the lots that you have?
I own, sorry, give me 1 second. I own the 2 in the cul-de-sac and then the one off of Patriot Drive at the very end of the cul-de-sac that don't have houses on it. And then I own the 3rd lot, waterfront property right next to it.
All right, thank you.
Truman Cove, sorry.
All right,
Did you get
thank
that?
you.
Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, he's referring to lot 22 on our 200-foot diagram.
Yeah, I believe so. I think I found it there. Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, anyone else during the public hearing like to comment?
Comment?
Yes, Linda?
I would just like to say that a 2-story in this neighborhood is really, would really be, make the neighborhood a different type of place. Right now, it's kind of a uniform neighborhood. Everybody has 1-story homes. And while people are talking about 2-story homes down the street, that's true. If you pass Truman, so if you go down the street, past Truman, and go down the street, down that Patriot even further past Truman, you are in an area of 2-story homes. But it's really a different type of neighborhood than this one. This is a really different type of neighborhood, and it would really disrupt the whole appearance of the neighborhood by plopping a 2-story where it is. I guess I would compare it to like being in Chicago. You can be in the Gold Coast on this block, across the street, and that block projects. But it is 2 different types of neighborhood enclaves, and to put a story here would really be very disruptive architecturally. Aesthetically, architecturally, it would really be unpleasant.
I think Art needs to mute his microphone.
Sorry about
Yeah, I'm not sure who that is, but
It's gone now.
okay. Yeah, we missed about at least a fourth of what you were saying there, Linda.
I'm sorry.
I lost
In a
you
nutshell,
after
I would just say that
you were talking
aesthetic,
about Chicago. It scared me to death there was going to be shootings. So
no, it's just that to say, you know, when you have an enclave like you do on the 2700 block of Patriot that is single story architecture, and then to say, well, there's 2 stories down the street, that's true, but you have to go down the street to Truman, cross over Truman, go down further, and then you have an enclave of 2-story homes. It's like in Chicago, you can go past one street, you're in the Gold Coast here, go past one street and you are in the project. They are 2 distinctly different architecturally aesthetic types of neighborhoods. And a 2-story here would be very disruptive architecturally and aesthetically.
thank you, Linda. Was there someone else that was going to comment during the public hearing?
Yeah, so for clarification, I own lots 28 and 29, and then 2604, not 22. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Anyone else that was going to wanted to speak during the public hearing? Doesn't appear so. All right, then we're going to close the public hearing at 8:26. And we can move on to any further discussion amongst the commission members. Tom?
Yeah, with respect to this property, you know, yeah, the area is zoned at 15 feet, that's true, but we also have a separate zoning ordinance that specifies this exception process. So we're not directly tied to that 15 feet unless an exception is gotten or is not received. So in looking at what the ordinance requires of us, will it impact views of the surrounding area properties? And views are defined in the ordinance as well. And then the other thing is impact views, and then the architectural context is one element as well. Given that this area is relatively, you know, flat, generally 2-story houses do not block any views because whatever could be seen would be interrupted just by what's allowed by right anyway. So, and also with respect to architectural context, I would have to, my opinion is that that area is not sufficiently developed to have defined what the architectural context might be. Who knows what other types of homes will be requested in the future in those lots. So I don't think we have sufficient build out of the area to define an architectural context, in my opinion. So with looking at those narrow things that we are supposed to look at, I'm in favor of approving the exception, since with the exception rule also has a maximum height of 35 feet, but I do think the height may be slightly excessive. So I think if we have a motion to approve, then I would think I'll stipulate that they lower the roof pitch so it gets the roof line down another 3 feet, about 3 feet.
Gary?
which we've also done in the past as well in other areas.
Gary?
Thank you, Tom. Yes, Charlie?
From my perspective, this is not a variance, but a change in the zoning ordinance. Because are we going to do this? Are we going to go through this for every lot in that area and give them a variance to build a 2-story house? If we're going to do that, we need to change the zoning ordinance. This area was zoned for 1-story homes. That's why it's in place. And giving a variance for 3 or 4 feet because somebody wants to put in a cathedral ceiling in their den, that's grounds for a variance. But this isn't a variance. This is a major change in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Charlie.
And they knew what the ordinance was when they bought the property. Okay, this isn't something new that we surprised them with.
Yes, Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say that I think you can build a 2-story house in this neighborhood. I do not agree with Charles that it's just we would have to rezone the entire neighborhood to build 1 2-story home on this particular lot. I just feel as though this particular design is excessively tall, and maybe I shouldn't care if I would allow a 2-story home, then whether it's 26 feet tall or 30 feet tall may not make any difference at all.
How many variances do you want to grant?
Special exceptions
you want
for
to grant a variance for every lot in that neighborhood?
Are you
Charlie?
referring to a special exception for height? Charles?
Anybody
Okay.
can bring that variance forward and make application. And we've done this multiple times. Some we've denied, some we've approved, some like Tom had suggested. We negotiated to where they wouldn't, they wanted 28 feet and they came down to 24 and a half. So I think that if we go back to the original intent of how this R1T came about, was because builders wanted to be able to deliver a product that was acceptable to their customers, and more of them wanted 2-story homes, and that anything at the 15-foot and possibly the 18-foot was not, they could not build. They wanted to get away from the 8-foot ceilings and go to the 9 or 10-foot ceilings. So that's how we ended up developing this over a period of time.
All of these lots are
Larry?
zoned for 15-foot homes.
Yes, Gary.
That is correct. And 18 is about the maximum in Lago Vista in some of the subdivisions. And that's why we developed a program that would allow, without blocking views, to be able to let people build a taller home than the 15 or 18 feet. And that happened about 8 years ago. Yes, Larry?
Gary, I'm kind of inclined to agree with Charlie on this one, and I think in my mind, if we do a variance, basically now we go 2-story in an area that, if you follow the zoning, can only be 1-story. Nobody can build a 2-story in 15 feet, pretty point blank. And all of a sudden, 8 years from now, and none of us are still on the council, somebody else wants to build one. Maybe these 4 or 5 lots all of a sudden want to build. Well, the guys that are the people who had places 1-story with the thought that everything around them was going to be comparable to what they own is all of a sudden totally not in the picture. I'm not sure we're being fair to ourselves or to the people that live there.
if we change the zoning to R1T, somebody comes forward with that, I'll look at it in a totally different light. But to all of a sudden to just pick and choose 2-story in the middle of an R1 just doesn't seem like the right answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, Richard?
I would like to say that this commission has approved 2-story homes in 15-foot zoning height restricted areas many, many times during the time that I have served on this commission. Many times. I'm astonished that it's being discussed as if it's totally unique. I just think that 30 feet tall is too high. I will say this, I can't tell from what was submitted what the ceiling heights are and to what extent that drove the height of this house, or if it's all in the roof, which I can't tell. But we have found a lot of 2-story designs that are not nearly as tall, much more compatible with their one-story surroundings. I would also like to add, these lots were platted 35 years ago. These lots have lain barren all that time. The people have not spoken as to what their architectural preference is, and they have also not responded for the most part to our request for input about how they feel about this particular house. We can't be blamed for not knowing what the architectural style ought to be for this neighborhood, because it has not spoken, and all these lots are just sitting there for reasons unknown to me. But we have approved a lot of 2-story houses. I just don't want to approve this one.
And, you know, it's one thing to approve a few feet because a lot is so sloped that they can build a 2-story house if they have 3 more feet. You know, and we've done that. And we've done that quite often. But this is a completely different change. And I don't understand why we have an ordinance that says 15 feet if we're not going to enforce it. If we're not going to enforce it, let's change it.
I guess, Charlie, just to respond back to what Richard said. 35 years ago, when nobody wanted a house that was more than 15 feet. And we have approved multiple homes, 2-story homes. And I tend to agree with Richard. This is excessive. But we're certainly not going, at least for myself, somebody wants to build a 2-story house in Lago Vista, they should be able to build a 2-story house, provided it is not going to affect the views of somebody else. But when you're in perfectly flat land, a 15-foot house, an 18-foot house, it's going to block whatever view you have when you're in a totally flat area. So anyway, I guess if there's
then why do we have the rules? Why are the rules in place anyway?
Which rule?
The 15-foot requirement for homes on all of these lots that are zoned in this area.
Because that happened 35 years ago, and 10 years ago, we went and made a provision.
Then let's change
so
it.
That if people,
then we need to change it.
Excuse me, Charles. I'm trying to answer your question. It was developed 35 years ago, 10 years ago. In order to keep up with the market, Lago Vista came up with a plan in order for people to make an exception and build a 2-story house, to have something with a 9-foot ceiling and not be stuck with 15 feet everywhere. And we have approved, as Richard said, multiple 2-story homes in the areas of either 15 or 18-foot maximums. So anyway, that's the reason why. Any further discussion on this particular topic? I guess I have, for myself, I have one last question of the builder. What is the absolute minimum height that you could build your two-story house on? Maybe that's a Michael question or a Luke question.
Can I rephrase the question to make sure I'm understanding correctly? So you're saying if we had
So
a flat
you're asking for a 15-foot variance. If you wanted to build a two-story house for that customer, what is the absolute minimum amount of that you could ask for, or the minimum that you could ask for to build a two-story house there?
for this specific lot, or just generically speaking?
No, this particular case. I guess what I'm looking for, and because Tom Monahan's brought it up, is that we have in the past negotiated a maximum height. When somebody wanted 12 feet, and we negotiated down 6 feet. So I guess that's the question.
Yeah, Michael and I have been discussing. We think we could build a two-story house at 27 feet. We would have to get an architect in the room, which we don't have with us today, to see if we go lower, but we're confident we can build this house at 27 feet. So that would be a 12-foot variance.
Okay. Understood. So is there any further discussion amongst the members of the commission? All right, if that's the case, then this item number 3 of 21-1819-SP-E to deny the 15-foot 01 increase in height for the residents of 2705 Patriot Drive, Section 29, Lot 29028. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Charles Solomon. Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Brown.
The applicant has made an offer about roof height. Does your motion take into consideration that ridge height or any other ridge height than the one that was provided with the application? If so, what is that number?
Is that a question of me, Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir. That was your motion.
Yeah, my motion was to deny the increase of the 15 feet.
Okay, thank you.
And it was seconded. All right, no further discussion. Those in favor of denying the application, start with Ms. Davis.
I am in favor of denying the application.
And Mr. Solomon?
Yeah, but deny the application.
And Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Denying the application?
Yes.
Mr. Hagler?
Aye, yes.
And Mr. Monahan?
Nay.
And chair votes to deny. That's 5 to deny, 1 in opposed. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right.
Thank you all for your time and your
Thank you
service.
very much.
It's appreciated.
Councilman Williams, you were the next one on the agenda. Do you want
Okay.
to use that as we prepare to move into the Master Plan Subcommittee report?
I would just prefer to just deal with the comprehensive master plan report. If that's,
All right.
unless someone has some questions.
Based on request, it is currently 8:45, and we're requesting a little bit of a break, and we will resume at 8:52.
Got it.
There are only two of us here. Where'd everybody else go?
Oh, one more.
Oh, hi, Larry.
Charlie. Charlie, when did you move to Lago?
5 years ago.
Where from?
When the drought was still going on.
Yep.
The next year it broke. So that was good timing.
Where'd you move from?
We lived in Carrollton, Texas, northeast west suburb of Dallas.
Oh,
and I
okay.
worked at the University of Texas at Dallas. My kids live here in Austin, so we came down here to be with the grandkids.
Well, when we moved here for a lot of the same reason, our son lives in Cedar Park with the grandkids.
Now, how long have you been here?
19 years this month.
Good Lord, you're only a year away from homestead.
Yeah. Bought the house about a year and a half before we moved here.
Hey, no, we were looking in Cedar Park. Didn't know. Then the real estate agent showed us a house out here and we bought it.
We had a similar situation. Somebody showed us property out here. We bought a lot and then came back and met another realtor and ended up buying a house. Sold the lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're on the 18th tee. David can tell you. He's waved at us a few times.
I'm on Boggy, real close to the Oaks.
Yeah, I watched you build your patio and your fence.
Yep. You didn't want for the help either.
Well,
That was hard work.
You had
chipping all that
people
rock out was hard work.
I know.
Oh. There was 4 inches. There was a bit steep slope, and there's 4 inches of topsoil on it, and then it's solid rock. To make a level spot, we had to take a bunch of rock out. But it's there now. It's nice. Come over and see.
Okay. Julie, how are you doing today?
All is well. How are you, Mr. Williams?
Yeah, you've been traveling a lot?
Every week. So,
oh, man.
So it's funny. I think my husband and I had a airport date and had a glass of wine at the airport as I flew out and he flew in. You know, it's just that kind of stuff. We're mid hustle, right? So we've got about 10 more years of this hustle that we need to do, and we make it work.
I hear you.
You did it for years.
Yeah, I did it for a while. Yes, I had to travel quite a bit. So I know the feeling.
I traveled 4 days a week for about 4 years. That was terrible. It was real exciting the first 2 weeks. After that, it was a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Well,
Fortunately,
it is
our family's just so used to it. It's a lifestyle, so we just manage. It'll be nice when it's over.
Yeah.
It's 8:52, and glad to see everybody back and refreshed. I hope that you all took advantage of that little respite. So we will go ahead and move on to item number 5. Discussion and recommendations concerning the Comprehensive Master Plan Subcommittee report.
Okay.
And so, Roy, are you the one that's going to lead this, or is it going to be David or Tom?
I'll be leading this one.
Well, okay. Wonderful.
So I want to thank everyone for their time. Want to give you a little brief oversight instead of just flipping through pages and pages. Want you to understand this was a committee that we put together. Paul Prince and I put it together trying to speed up the process with all the work that you all have been doing on heights and exceptions and everything. We felt that we needed to try to see if we could put the information together for you all and then see which parts we really need your input on. So we put a committee together. Mr. Chan, who was the city manager at that time, the interim city manager. We had Roy Jamber, Eric Belay. We had Tom Monahan representing P&Z. We had Jen Kaysen representing Building and Standards Committee. And then we had myself, Paul Prince, and Arch Davila representing the council. A little background. The subcommittee's goal was to try to put together one document that put everything into perspective and show results accomplished in both 2019 and 2020, so we could get past those 2 years. We also wanted to provide some actionable items, initiatives for 2021 and beyond. It doesn't cover all the initiatives that are needed because we figured that some of that needs to be coming from the new city manager when we put them in place, and from your input and some of the committee's inputs. And we're trying to make it an actual document that is utilized more than just at the end of the year, and make it easier for you all at the end of the year to just look it all over, add your section to it, and move on. The methodology that was used in making this happen, we had the city manager and every staff director that was listed in the comprehensive plan initiatives that exist to provide their initiatives and work that they have done, and to provide that to me in writing, and we put it into the comprehensive plan. The CMP subcommittee evaluated the initiatives and placed them within the 5 categories. And I'll list the 5 categories in a minute. We identified initiatives that were not actionable, but we did not remove those actions from the plan. We just showed that they're non-actionable. And I'll give you an example. 3-year annexation plan. Well, the city cannot annex anyone without voluntary understanding from the person. So therefore, we felt that it was not actionable for it to be an initiative that the city could work on right now unless something changed. But at some period in time, the state law might change that and say we can annex. So we didn't want to eliminate it from the plan. We just wanted to move it to not a priority at this time. Another example would be the sidewalk plan. We changed that to what's called network walkability plan. The reason why we did that was not everywhere in Lago Vista does it make sense to put sidewalks, but it makes sense to try to have some sort of plan, whether it's a trail that goes from some specific subdivision to some point that leads somewhere else. We wanted to have different options on ways that people can walk from point A to point B. So we called it a network walkability plan. The 5 categories that you see in the comprehensive plan is housing and neighborhood livability, land use, transportation, park and recreation and open spaces, and the city facilities and services. And so in that, you'll see different initiatives that were in the existing plan. And we tried to have some idea on actions underneath those initiatives that would help get to the overall objective. And again, some of that's going to have to come from the new manager and his staff, and suggesting what the problems are that exist that we need to address that aren't in the plan. The reasons why that exists is this plan was done back in 2015. In 2015, we only had a 3% growth. Now we got a 12% growth. So that requires different things to occur, such as we need to look at the future land use map. We need to have a clear understanding of a transportation plan that will allow us to make decisions and throw them into the plan so that we can move forward over the next years. So that's some of the things. The next section of the plan is the possible ordinances. And this is the section that I think requires the most help from you all. And that's because we need you to look at what ordinances need to be changed and how they need to be changed and in what order you're willing to work on trying to make those changes. There are probably 7 major possible ordinance amendments and changes that need to happen. And depending on what you feel is the order in which you want to spend your time trying to make that happen, along with Roy's help and Tom's help at looking at writing some ordinances, that's the main focus. So I'm just going to mention what those are. Amend variance approval criteria to match the state statutes, the fence regulation guidelines, eliminate types of regulations that are addressed in both Chapter 3 and Chapter 14, deleting building regulations from Chapter 14, new subdivision regulations. Look, you just had a whole big long discussion on the 15 and 18-foot height. We need to come to some consensus on what the height should be, and that we start with, whether that's 15, whether that's 18, whether that's 20. I remember when I first started with P&Z, we were trying to get the height to be at 20, and we ran into a lot of opposition. But I think having 15 and 18 is confusing. You need to have either 15 or 18. Conditional use exceptions, you need to work on that. Amending zoning districts, redefine standards, minimum lot size and frontages from districts. They're perhaps limiting driveways, have more traditional definition for C1, C2, and C3. C4 commercial amendments, and look at systems that would preclude special exception application for height that proceeds beyond the newly required failed framing inspection. So those are the type of issues that are laid out for you. So those are the type of discussions that you all need to have as a group and decide. Some of them require a lot more work. Some of them can be handled jointly in one ordinance and just work it through with Roy's help and go from there. The last section is an appendix section that just references all the ordinance that you all have approved in 2020, the street improvements that have occurred in 2020, the current site plan that exists right now for the multiple complex, which is just the library and city hall, which shall be changing somewhere in the future. So there will be amendments to that. Other public work projects, city council accomplishments, and golf course accomplishments. So that's how it's laid out. So from there, you can ask me any question you want of me or Tom, or because we're the only two, and Roy, we're the only 3 that are here to answer all your questions. But I wanted it to be more a question and answer type scenario with y'all. So that gives you an oversight. Questions?
Not so much a question as well, I guess it's kind of a question, but this is a terrific work product, covering a lot of things. So what exactly are you looking from us on this? Is to take up some of the
really
changes?
To focus more on the potential ordinance amendment part of this whole thing, because that's what is your responsibility in making changes, to the plan.
And even more specifically, Mr. Chair, if you will,
Go ahead.
The city council is looking to adopt these annual or semi-annual reports, and they can't do it without a recommendation from this body. So at the fundamental level, they're looking for you to recommend this, or recommend it with changes, or recommend it with comments, however you want to do it, or you can tell us it's awful and we don't recommend it. That's certainly an option too.
Thank you.
I would add that I think from some of the discussions we had and talking to Roy, some of the priority ordinance changes in the zoning ordinance is fences, which I'm currently looking at, pull together some ordinances from other cities. Because we have some major problems with our fencing ordinance, inconsistencies, enforcement issues, etc. The other is to, Dave mentioned the amending the variances or process, or the ordinance for allowing a variance that the Board of Adjustments has to handle. And so they need some more, better language, probably looking at adopting a variation or looking at the state statute and building around there probably. There's one other I can't escape right now. We've already done some changes on the conditional use permits. I can't recall if we got more to do, but we've done some, such as accessory buildings are also subject to special exception on the heights. There was kind of a loophole in my mind that come in for a conditional use permit for an accessory building, and there was really essentially no height restriction. That's similar to what we do for the house itself. And there's, I would guess we're probably looking at a couple of years of doing these things. It makes it more difficult because we can't meet as subcommittees, because that we used to do, because I guess it's nice to do some work as a subcommittee where you get together and don't not do the public hearings, but now even subcommittee meetings require public hearings, so that makes it a little difficult. So it's almost I think the challenge is to what someone's willing to put some sweat equity into to help with some of the ordinance changes, I guess, because I know Roy's pretty swamped. So, so anyway, that's what I had to add, I guess.
I would like to say, yes, it's a large undertaking. I appreciate all that you've already done to organize it. One item that we've already talked about, let me back up. Tom talking about committees and subcommittees. I'd like an opinion from Ms. Silvera to tell us if we have a subcommittee meeting and it has to be a public meeting, an open meeting, does that mean that the public is allowed to participate, or just does that only mean that they must be allowed to be present?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brown, when the law changed, what the law now allows under the Open Meetings Act is that for every item that's listed on the agenda, the public is allowed to make comments. Okay. It doesn't mean that they're allowed to participate interactively, but they're allowed to make comment. Now, traditionally or historically, the city has allowed public comments on these agenda items as that item is discussed. For example, tonight you took comments, you had a couple public hearings where you took comments from the public. There, you can also set it up where if you have an agenda item listed, you can take all the public comments on the agenda and non-agenda items at the beginning of the meeting. Public comments are not meant to be question and answer sessions. It's not meant to be an open forum for discussion. So you have that option depending on how your chair runs your meeting.
Okay, thank you. The reason I asked that that question is it seems to me that subcommittee meetings have in the past proven very productive. And I feel as though in light of what I'm reading by the speaker of the gospel, Dr. Fauci, that I can now meet together indoors with groups who are also vaccinated, without masks, and that I think that a lot of the work that we have had to postpone, that we can resume work on. For instance, we were trying to get work done on helping the mesh the future land use map and the comp plan. And boy, I don't know if one drives the other or if you just kind of slide them together. But when there are inconsistencies, those do have to be resolved. But like that's something that I think can only work on with subcommittees, with people sitting around talking and thrashing things out. I think it's very difficult to work as an individual and write up a report and submit it and have somebody read all the reports and decide which one seems most viable. And I'm really looking forward to being able to utilize the subcommittee format again to try to get work done. And this work that you have just described for us seems to me to lend itself very well for that, where we mix commission, council, and buildings and standards committee people together to get work done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Richard. So in response to that, when are we going to be able to meet and get rid of this format?
I don't have an answer to that question. I'm sure when the mayor comes back into town, council will have some more discussion on when that will be. It's really been dictated by the state so far. Aaron, you have anything else to say on that? Don't know.
I think I quite honestly think it's dictated more by this through Travis County more than anything else. But
Travis County, yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
If the mayor comes back with a mask on, that probably will give us our answer. So.
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman,
Larry. Yes, Larry.
I know for a fact, my wife came back from a real nice luncheon at the K Oaks yesterday, or Tuesday, excuse me, with probably over 100 ladies, no mask, had a nice lunch, had a meeting, I understand, shaking hands, hugs, whatever. And, I would almost think if the K Oaks could do it, city council chambers wouldn't have 100 people in there.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, Aaron.
Maybe you can encourage the mayor to think in that direction. I'll leave the politics out.
Yes, Ms. Silvera.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. So the city's begun the process of, I guess you call it reopening. Here in a couple weeks, we're going to reopen our front lobby to folks. People will still be required to wear masks. Interestingly enough, we have quite a few, more than you would anticipate, folks who work in City Hall that have not been vaccinated. And so we want to continue to protect those folks. and they, you know, the reasoning for their non-vaccination is varied from person to person. As you saw at if you're paying attention to the last council meeting, you would notice that many of our council members participated. They were together in the council chambers. So we are starting that adjustment. We do have a council member who is still not, for health reasons, comfortable meeting in person. And so, you know, the mayor is going to work with that council member to find an appropriate time to make that adjustment. Until we can have all of the council members in the chamber at one time, we'll have to continue to do the Zoom, the go-to meetings. Once we can have all our council members together, then I anticipate we will the word's escaping me, but we're going to transition, that's the word I was looking for, back to open meetings. I think one of the things that we have been watching closely is that there are about 30% roughly population-wise of Texas that's been vaccinated. I think they were looking for a much greater percentage to really ensure herd immunity. We don't want to put the public at risk if they're not comfortable. And the one thing that we have is a technology challenge. If we do go-to meetings, the public has to be all go-to. We cannot have a hybrid where you have people in the council chambers on the public side and people online. Now, if we transfer or transition back, we will have the live streamed on YouTube, the council meetings. But as you guys know, if you want to actually participate in the council meeting, you have to come to the city council chambers. So long story short, we're starting that process. We're not quite there yet. The staff have entertained some in-person meetings in the council chambers where we can socially distance. And so I expect here in the coming months, you know, we may continue that trend and allow more committee meetings, subcommittee meetings. I know that some of those have happened when all of the committee members are comfortable with that. The particular difficulty you face when you have a P&Z subcommittee is that those, as we discussed earlier, those are required to be open meetings subject to the Open Meetings Act by state law. And so unlike some of the other subcommittees that are not subject to that same requirement, you guys would have to have enough space available for the regular public to be in attendance. And so it may take a little bit longer to get there, but I think you can. If we can find a space that would accommodate that spacing, social distance spacing, we can do that. Just keep in mind that you know, we won't be able to record them. Whoever is acting as your, they will have to be audio recorded so that minutes can be prepared. So you just want to think about that. So there's some logistical issues we're still working through, but I feel like here in the coming months, we're going to get there. We just have to get all of our council members as the first step ready and available to sit as one. And then the public can be pulled in for council purposes. So you might, when you set your subcommittees, have kind of that discussion about your comfort level of meeting together in close proximity. If y'all are all vaccinated, I've been vaccinated since December. So we can do that. I believe Roy's been vaccinated as well. So we've been preparing for this for some time.
So there's really no target date, but we're working on it. And so those rumors that float around that I get from the county well into the fall and maybe by Thanksgiving. So
right.
Hate to be the doom and gloom, but I'm afraid just because of some of the pressures out there that
and some that are being now discovered to be unfounded, we're going to be stuck with this for quite a while to come.
Yep.
Mr. Brown, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw your hand up. Councilman Williams,
Yes.
anything else that you want to review at this time as far as the
No, but if you could just all have your
plan update?
recommendations, if you could just all have your recommendations to Roy, because I think I'm on the schedule to present the comprehensive plan to City Council on June 3rd. So we wanted to wait to see how you felt about some of the possible ordinances and that you needed to work on. And, you know, I mean, some of the other committees that some of the other advisory committees that are working on work plans like economic development, planning and zoning is an important part of that for them to have a clear understanding of where we're going down the future. So anything that we can work on to help this become more of an actionable document versus something that's just looked at the end of the year would be very helpful. So that's the goal. So it's not something that's going to be done overnight, but I'm trying to get everybody's input into it so that we can figure out what the 2021 plan, move it and beyond should look like and how it can move forward.
Well, Mr.
Thank you,
Williams,
David. So,
I beg your pardon, Gary. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think as we review what we have here, we need to send that on to Roy and let him be the person that gathers this. And Roy, anything that you would suggest that you would like to get some immediate input from us, if you would just make that request.
Well, yes, sir. And what Mr. Williams was referring to is if this is going to be adopted by the council at that date, they need the recommendation of this body in order to do that. So, and the point being, it may require this to be delayed, but you know, whenever you're ready, you're ready. If you're ready tonight, that's good too.
Well, I mean, as far as this, I guess it's really kind of a preliminary that we have before us, and certainly the time that I spent with it, I certainly would be in favor of making a recommendation to the city council.
Does that need to be on the agenda, published on the agenda, that action?
It is on the agenda, sir.
It is on the agenda. Discussion and recommendation concerning the comprehensive master plan.
Okay.
Subcommittee report. And so, I mean, if it requires a motion, I mean, I'd make a motion right now that the Planning and Zoning Commission of Lago Vista recommends the comprehensive master plan subcommittee report approval to the City Council of Lago Vista. How does that sound, Ms. Silvera?
I second. Second.
Take some public comments on this real quick.
Yeah, I see Mr. Roberts over here.
Mr. Awesome?
Mr.
Yes.
Awesome. What is this name with Mr. Awesome? Well, you know, what's going on here?
It transcends.
It should be Mr. Ego.
Hey, Paul, we don't see your, all I see is your forehead.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep it that way. So the reality, sorry, I wasn't expecting to jump in on this, guys. But
aren't you forbidden from speaking to the commission while you're not dressed?
I'm dressed, sir. I just don't have a shirt on, to be quite frank. Do you want proof?
No,
No,
no.
no. I'm already seeing more than I would like to.
You could put in your application for CNN and be on one of their. But anyway,
It's all right. The good
are
thing is
we appropriate at this point, because we have it's been moved and seconded to approve and recommend this to the city council. So I guess this is a discussion phase. And
did you create the did you ask for public comments, Mr. Chairman?
I guess the question is it appropriate? I guess I'll ask Aaron. Is it appropriate for others than those members of the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss this particular motion that's on the floor?
So, Mr. Chairman, as I stated a few minutes ago, talked about public participation. We are required to take public comments on every agenda item. I don't think we've taken them yet. So the motion was a bit premature, and you'll want to take those public comments first and then go back to your motion and have your folks discuss.
Do we have to withdraw the motion?
It would be appropriate, yes, sir.
All right, then the motion that was seconded and put forward by the chair, I will remove that motion at this time. And that motion was to recommend the subcommittee report on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Commission to the City Council. So we'll remove that. So now we'll go ahead, even though it's not listed here, we'll open a public hearing on item number 5 at 9:26 p.m.
It's not a public hearing, sir. It's just public comments.
Comments.
Right. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Would you guys, whoever makes their motion, would you please consider a motion to approve, such as you were beginning, you did, but in consideration of changing from a public hearing to the public meeting format, as is necessitated by the change in state law and staff constraints and expediency being important in the plating applications, if there could be a recommendation to incorporate some type of enhanced noticing with regard to plating, public notice on the plating side, enhanced notice on the enhanced public notice for plating applications. I think that would be great and help to negate the lack of a public hearing. So an example of enhanced public noticing might be making sure that it's published in more places than one. I don't know, the city website. Mr. Williams might be able to expound upon this as soon as I conclude my comments in about 20 seconds. The council talked about this at last week's meeting regarding enhanced public comments for plating applications. So maybe if y'all could talk about that a little bit and find something that is agreeable, I think that would be great in pursuant to helping to protect the public's interests as best as possible. Thank you very much. That's all.
Any other comments at this time?
I understood.
Mr. Williams, did you want to reply? Since Mr. Roberts brought up your name, Councilman Williams, did you want to reply to?
No, no. I mean, we're looking at trying to see if we could put more on the website to talk about locations that we're plating or something to that effect, to just try to have more access for the public to be aware of what's going on. I don't know how much that will help. I think some people will look at that, but there's still a lot of people that don't like to go to the website. So I'm not real sure on what other options we have, but we'll look into trying to determine the different options that are available and see what we can do to help that cause.
Well, and for clarification, Mr. Chairman, that ordinance has not only been written, it's been adopted, and it does include that requirement that it includes notice on the city website as determined at the last city council meeting. Now, if you want to bring up a proposed change, what you need to do is make that in a future agenda item, and we need to advertise it as a public hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back to that. Tom, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't think that issue is part of what we're before us is a report on the comprehensive plan. That's kind of a separate issue, so.
That item, it was not in the plan or the report.
Right.
Right.
All right. I guess for further discussion at this point before we make another motion.
Mr. Chairman, I feel I'm prepared to vote on this item tonight.
All right. No, nobody's going to force you to vote. I'll try one more time to make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Commission of Lago Vista recommends to the City Council the review of the Comprehensive Master Plan Subcommittee report. Close enough? Would someone like to second that? It's going to be seconded by Tom Monahan. And any further discussion? Then we'll see who would like to vote. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Solomon? Give us a thumbs up or something. You're muted. Okay, thank you, Charles. Mr. Brown?
I abstain.
And Mr. Hagler?
Aye.
Tom Monahan, since you seconded, approved?
Aye.
Okay, Zaleski approved. And so that motion carries with one abstention.
And Richard, if you need to meet with me to get a better understanding or a better feel for what we're trying to do here, I'll be more than happy to meet with you. I have my shots too.
Thank you. Well, I read the report. I made a few notes. I thought about several of the items. I had anticipated that there would be time for some discussion tonight. I did not know about your June 3rd deadline. I may have overlooked that in the notes. And I obviously know that we are not scheduled to meet again before June 3rd, so there is that. But I
do want you all to understand that what this is going to do, I'm just presenting it on June 3rd. You know, I'm hoping that there will be changes to it, and that as you see changes that need to happen in the comprehensive plan, as far as actionable items that are towards a particular initiative, or if there's a new initiative that needs to be added to deal with the increased growth that we're having, that we have those kind of discussions, and they'll this document will become more of an actionable document that's utilized throughout the year. Okay, so in no way is this a document that's going to be used in a term of that's set in stone. This is not a set in stone. This is an actionable item that we can change to make it better, improve the quality of life in Lago. So that's the point.
I like to set those things in oatmeal in case I have to eat them later. And
okay.
That's always worked for me.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Item number 6. Discussion and possible action to initiate zoning change involving existing property in the light industrial district east of Lago Vista, Rusty Allen Airport, a change initiated by the city in late 2017, ordinance number 16-12-15-01.
Yes,
Roy,
sir.
would you like to?
Yes, sir. This is the item that Mr. Monahan brought up last month as a future agenda item. This action was taken by the city council and in response to a recommendation in both the comprehensive plan and the master plan. Unfortunately, the term industrial, I think, was not used to describe our existing light industrial zoning district as much as it was to describe the type of development that already occurs in and around the airport. I think that was the clear intent. What happened was, when they took it a little too literally, is it opened up these incompatible uses that I highlighted in yellow in your packet. And we have a few of those up there now. And quite frankly, I've arm wrestled keeping even more of them out of there in anticipation of this happening. We had always expected the airport advisory board to show up at one of your meetings and making this request. It never actually happened. So Tom was kind of recruited, I think, to bring this up as an agenda item. What we'd like to do is get your permission to advertise it for a public hearing and to initiate this change, which I put the ordinance language in there that recognized both you and the city council have the ability to do that. The young lady that's been waiting here patiently for this entire time contacted us recently because, and she makes a very good point, if you look back at both the comprehensive plan and the airport action plan, the original recommendation was to include all of the area north of Rawhide and east of the airport all the way to the municipal limits. They only did about half of that. What it did was leave some residentially zoned lots next to these, industrial uses right now. And her request is to get you to consider doing what was in the original recommendation, and that's to expand it even further and include all of those same lots that I just described. You'll notice that if you look at both the recommendation documents in both the comprehensive plan, which through the future land use map, and both of the maps from the airport action plan, it shows all of that property being changed into whatever you decide to change it in. It's only the existing zoning map that leaves it where it's only half done. Her request is to at least advertise the entire area. That doesn't obligate you in any way in shape or form with your recommendation. You can still, after advertising it, recommend only the existing ones be changed. But if we don't advertise all of it, you can't consider it.
I see Ms. Evans there. Did you want to make a comment at all along with Mr. Jambor, Ms. Evans?
Yes, sir. I would like to make a comment. My name's Sean Michelle Evans. Hi, everyone. I've learned a lot. This is my first council meeting, and so I hope I'm articulating this well. So with expressing my concern about the 15-foot height restriction, you can't even build a 2-story up there. And I'd like to point out, like what Gary was talking about, is he was saying if the area is flat, you're not blocking anyone's view. They created the 15-foot variance to block anyone's view, and you're at the very top of that hill or mountain, whatever you want to call it. And my client would love to build a 2-story and rezoning it to where it's 30 feet over in that area. And so what I'm asking is to expand the scope of the application you already are considering by adding more property to it. To all the remaining platted lots in the municipal limits currently in the R1B, single family zoning district east of Lago Vistas, Rusty Island Airport, and north of Rawhide Trail. And if you were to look on Rolling Hills Trail, there are address 9312, 9310, 9314, 9402, and 9400 are all over 15 feet. There is the one at 9310, it's got to be over 30. It does. And then on the side of the street on Red River Cove, which is the address of the property that my client wants to buy, there's a 2-story house on Pier and Beam, and it's over 15 feet. And so I would really like to see that this zoning get expanded. Thank you.
Thank you. Roy, I guess what your question is, what we're charged with is that the action that we could initiate this evening is to be able to put this, advertise it and get it in
Right.
as an agenda item.
You have to
correct?
take that vote to initiate the application and to also tell us how much property you want to include in that application. It has nothing to do with your final recommendation.
Do it all.
It seems like we might as well consider everything.
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman.
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman, or anyone else who is present, would you please help me identify where Rawhide is? I'm not that familiar with the location of.
That's the street at the very south end of the runway, and that kind of wraps around the airport.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine.
You seeing it?
It's probably the only street name I can't read unless it's upside down. No, but I would like to say to Ms. Evans that this commission, not all these members present, but this commission did approve a house to be built 30 feet tall on Barquet Ranch Road and one of these little side streets. I don't know how many years ago, but it was approved. I have to say it was approved over my objection, but it was approved. And so it's not without precedent to build a 30-foot tall house up on that hill. Oh, by the way, I don't know if the house ever got built, but
it has not, the one you're asking about, but
okay.
I think we have another similar.
The architect from California.
Right.
Okay. Well, when you say everything north and east of Rawhide, is that what would be considered?
East of the airport, but north of Rawhide.
Okay. Okay.
There's a little section, if you look at the zoning map, there's a little section left called R1B.
Yes.
It's just adding that.
Okay. To what we were already going to consider. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
To answer your question about there was more to the request than just the height. Part of what they were wanting to do was build the kind of eclectic sort of hangar looking structures that are already there. And that is allowed in the C4. And to live there, it's not allowed in the R1B. It's not just the height.
Okay, but you're not referring to necessarily through the fence residences, right?
No, sir, they were not interested in taxiway access.
Okay,
And
thank
some
you.
of those lots might eventually have it, but not all of them.
Mr. Brown?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
If you look at page 105 of 139 of the packet, which is the Rusty Allen Airport action plan map.
I'm looking at that as we speak.
So Rawhide connects with Barcade down at that Y connection, and then it wraps up around the blue to create the eastern border of the area we're talking about. So there's your Rawhide. And then the area that they're talking about are all the ones that are north of the blue section, the airport, and then bounded by that Rawhide.
Thank you, ma'am.
So once again, to just reiterate, Roy, then do we have to make some type of a motion to have this brought forward?
Yes, sir.
So that
you'll be instructing the staff to initiate the application on your behalf.
Okay. So is there further discussion prior to me making another mistake and putting forward a motion before other people had an opportunity to discuss? I guess there isn't any further discussion on this subject. Tom, do you want to take a shot at that motion?
Oh, really? Okay. I'll make a motion that we apply for rezoning all the areas in discussion this evening up at the airport for as an agenda item at an upcoming meeting. Is that close enough?
Ms. O'Mara?
I understand what was discussed. Just for clarification, Mr. Monahan, we're talking about all of the area that is east of the airport and bounded by Rawhide Trail. All of that would be proposed for rezoning at the initiation, to be initiated by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yeah, I wish you could have made the motion for me. That's right.
Yes. Will the motion
thank you, Tom. I'll second.
Will the motion specify the zoning we are seeking?
Well, we have to advertise something, and we'll probably advertise C4. Once again, that does not bind you to that. Your recommendation can include a mixture of different zonings if you choose. For example, the RRA district would also allow this type of hangar home, but it wouldn't allow some of the other businesses. You might choose to rezone some of this to RRA and others to C4 as your recommendation. But yeah, we have to
break it up. We can do different things for different pieces.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
okay.
We have to advertise something, but that your recommendation can, go wherever you want it to, so to speak.
I believe Mr. Brown's question
So
was
it's been
about
moved and seconded, correct? Is there any further discussion?
I just add, I think if we put this on a meeting, we should limit our agenda items because I think that airport crowd could be pretty vocal, so they may spend a lot of our time on that meeting. But I think they would probably be in favor of it, but there could be some well-attended meeting by some of that crowd up there.
Well, it's been lonely, Tom, so that'll be nice to have our friends with us. So it's been moved and seconded, and I don't believe there's any further discussion on the part of the commission. Okay, Ms. Davis?
Can I make a comment, or I'll wait till we vote? I'd like to have a quick comment on it.
Ms. Davis votes aye. Correct, Julie?
Correct.
Mr. Solomon?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Hagler?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Passes to the city, well, to be advertised and placed on the agenda of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Yes, Sean, thank you very much for the applause. We don't get too much.
That was a long wait, wasn't it?
You know, it was a very long wait, but it was very informative, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. It was good. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for passing that.
Tom, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just going to Roy. Are you gonna have any kind of early meeting or with the airport advisory board or anything? Because they used to discuss this stuff sometimes up there too. Or
They've been nagging and wanting to know what took so long, and yet they never showed up at your meeting like we agreed to make the request. I mean, it was like a chicken and the egg kind of discussion always.
Yeah, I remember that.
So you're the one that finally just did it.
Okay, chicken and egg and the monocoop and the biplane, which came first. So anyway, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed in the consent agenda are to be considered routine by the commission and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, then that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. And that is number 7, the approval of the minutes from January 14th of 2021 regular meeting. I take it everybody's had an opportunity to just study and pore over those minutes. Once again, want to thank Alice Drake for all of her work, and anybody that would be able to listen to us over and over deserves a lot more than we could ever do for her. So all in favor of the approval of the minutes signify by raising your hand.
Mr. Terry,
Julie, you got your hand up? Okay. The minutes have been approved. The next item was future agenda item, and I think based on what we just did with the airport and also the comprehensive plan, we got plenty to do with our future agenda items. And based on some of the other things, you think we got a pretty full load, Roy?
Well, we're splitting it up into 2 meetings. And we've already advertised one of them, but if we had one, it would be absurd. But because we're having 2, it ought to be much more manageable. But I'm looking for permission to advertise the 2 that Tom mentioned already earlier in this meeting, if you have that inclination. Those have gotten kind of urgent. Let me put it this way. There's some fences out there that people aren't going to like if we don't fix that fence ordinance, and they're building more and more of them. And the other one is kind of what's given the Board of Adjustments problems in how to look at fences and other types of variances. And that one's so short. I mean, it just seems, silly not to put it on there. But, if we advertise it and we don't make it, the world doesn't come to an end. But I would at least like permission to advertise it.
Sounds good to me.
Do it.
Thank you, sir.
Well, the nice thing about it is, don't we get double time when we have double meetings?
If this is a pattern, we may have to look at it, but and we got a couple of them. I'm just gonna have to tell the people no, but they keep pouring in.
It sounds like the legislature is going to make things worse still.
Well, along those lines, and I know Mr. Brown cares about this deeply. It looks like they were looking at an exemption to allow cities with less than 20 or 25,000 population to regulate building materials. It looks like that's going to crash and burn. So,
I got a quick question on the minute deals. We're sending all our meetings to archive them on YouTube now. So do you really have to have Alice go through and create these written minutes?
Well, we've encouraged her to do more summary minutes, like more like what Sandra does, but she hadn't taken the hint yet.
No, okay.
Tell her 2 pages, 2 pages max. If you can't whittle it down to 2 pages, just stop when you run out of 2 pages.
Just attach the agenda and say, if you need more information, put a link to YouTube.
Minutes are required by our rules of procedure, so minutes are required.
I figured
2 pages will easily meet that requirement.
Does it have a set format?
It doesn't, but the council can adopt one. Yeah.
I have a certain time of the day where I just am sitting and relaxing and poring over the minutes.
Relive the moment.
All right. If there isn't anything else, sports fans, it is 9:57 and we are adjourned.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good weekend, everybody.